The alarm bells rang through the deep space monitoring station with a sound that made everyone's blood run cold. Lieutenant's 4 eyes went wide as she stared at her screen. The readings made no sense. Something huge was coming toward their space, and it was bigger than anything she had ever seen. "Admiral, to the command center immediately," she called into her communicator with shaking hands. Her voice cracked as she spoke. In her 10 years of service, she had never seen energy readings like these. Admiral arrived within minutes, her tall purple form moving quickly across the metal floor. Her 6 arms moved with practiced speed as she examined the data. The other officers stepped back to give her room. Everyone knew the Admiral's reputation. She had fought in more space battles than anyone else in the hegemony. If something worried her, then everyone should be worried. "Show me the numbers again," she ordered. Her main eyes focused on the screen while her smaller eyes watched the other displays. The readings appeared again, and she felt her heart skip a beat. The object was massive. The computer estimated it was over 200 kilometers long. That was bigger than their largest space station. It was also putting out energy readings that were off the charts. Their most powerful battleship would look like a toy next to this thing. "Where did it come from?" asked. "The Outer Rim, Admiral," replied Lieutenant. "It appeared on our sensors 6 hours ago. We thought it was a mistake at first, so we ran the scans 3 times, but it's real, and it's heading straight for our core systems." The Admiral's worst fears began to take shape in her mind. For months, intelligence reports had been coming in about humanity. The young species had appeared in their galaxy only 50 years ago, but they were causing problems everywhere they went. They won battles they should have lost. They built things that should have been impossible, and there were rumors about a secret weapon. "Pull up the human intelligence files," she ordered. The main screen changed to show reports from across the galaxy. Human ships had defeated larger forces using strange tactics. Human colonies appeared in places where no one should be able to live, and there were whispers about something called the Planet Killer. Most officers in the hegemony thought the Planet Killer was just a story, something humans made up to scare their enemies, but looking at these readings, realized it might be real, and it was heading their way. "Send an emergency message to High Command," she said. "Tell them we have a code black situation. Unknown vessel of extreme size approaching core territory, possible human." The communications officer's hands shook as he sent the message. A code black hadn't been declared in over 100 years. It meant the survival of their entire civilization might be at stake. Within an hour, responses flooded in from across hegemony space. Fleet commanders demanded more information. Politicians argued about what to do. Scientists tried to understand the readings. But everyone agreed on one thing: this was the most dangerous situation they had faced in centuries. "Admiral," called out the sensor technician, "I'm picking up more details about the object's structure." The main screen showed a rough outline of the approaching vessel. It was not shaped like any ship they knew. Instead of the smooth curves of hegemony vessels or the sharp angles of other species' ships, this thing looked irregular, almost like someone had stuck different parts together without caring how it looked. "Look at these sections here," the technician continued, pointing to areas along the hull. "The computer thinks these might be weapon systems, big ones, really big ones." Studied the image. If those were weapons, they were larger than anything in their fleet. Each one could probably destroy a battleship with a single shot, and there seemed to be dozens of them covering the hull. "How long until it reaches our first colonies?" she asked. "At current speed, about 72 hours, Admiral." 72 hours. Not much time to prepare for what might be the end of everything they knew, had fought against the Empire and won. She had defended their space against the Silicon Collective, but this felt different. This felt impossible. "Get me a direct line to the High Council," she ordered. "Priority 1. The hologram of Council Leader Thane appeared within minutes. His ancient features looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. "Admiral, I assume you're calling about this mysterious object." "Yes, Council Leader. I believe we're looking at humanity's secret weapon, the one our intelligence has been trying to find for years." "Are you certain?" "The size matches the rumors. The energy output is beyond anything we've seen, and it's coming from human space." She paused. "Council Leader, if this is what I think it is, our entire fleet might not be enough to stop it." The silence stretched for long moments. Finally, Thane spoke. "What do you recommend?" "We need to gather every ship we can, call in the reserve fleets, contact our allies. This isn't just about the hegemony anymore. If humanity has a weapon this powerful, it threatens everyone in the galaxy. That would be the largest military gathering in our history." "Yes, sir, and we might still lose." Thane's expression grew grim. "Do it. Send out the calls. Tell them it's a matter of species survival." As the connection ended, looked around at her officers. They were all staring at her with a mixture of fear and determination. These were good people who had served their worlds with honor. They didn't deserve to face something like this. "You heard the Council Leader," she announced. "Start sending messages to every fleet commander, every ally, every species that has ever worked with us. Tell them we need ships. Tell them we need them fast. And tell them that if we fail here, there might not be another chance." The command center exploded into activity as officers rushed to carry out her orders. Messages went out across the galaxy calling for help. Ancient treaties were invoked. Old favors were called in. Species that had been enemies for centuries put aside their differences to face this new threat. But as watched the countdown timer showing how long they had left, she wondered if it would be enough. The humans had surprised them before with their strange abilities and impossible victories. Now they were coming with what looked like the ultimate weapon. The galaxy would never be the same. The war room on Hegemony Prime had never seen so many species gathered in one place. Representatives from 17 different civilizations sat around the massive table, their various forms of communication creating a chaos of sounds, colors, and chemical signals. But despite their differences, they all shared the same expression of fear. Admiral stood at the head of the table, her multiple arms pointing to the holographic display showing fleet positions across the galaxy. "As of this morning, we have assembled 3,200 vessels," she announced. "This is the largest military force in recorded galactic history." The ambassador, a creature that looked like a walking tree with too many eyes, rustled his leaves nervously. "And you believe this will be enough to stop one human ship?" "I hope so," replied honestly. "But I can't promise anything. We've never faced anything like this before." The display showed ships moving from every corner of hegemony space. Battleships that hadn't left port in decades were now racing toward the interception point. Ancient carriers that had been turned into museums were hastily loaded with fighter craft. Even civilian vessels had been pressed into service as support ships. "The cost is enormous," complained the finance minister, his crystal body glowing red with agitation. "This mobilization is using more resources than our last 3 wars combined." "Money won't matter if we're all dead," snapped Commander from the Reptilian League. Her forked tongue flicked out as she spoke. "The humans have already proven they're dangerous. Now they're bringing their ultimate weapon. We either stop them here, or there won't be an economy left to worry about." The truth of her words hung heavy in the room. Over the past months, reports had been flooding in from across the galaxy about human activities. They appeared in systems where no one should be able to survive. They built structures that known engineering principles. And whenever someone tried to challenge them, the humans found ways to win that made no sense. "What's the latest intelligence on the approaching vessel?" asked the Hegemony's science advisor, Doctor. His blue skin was pale with worry. Lieutenant activated the scans. "The object continues to approach at steady speed. Our long-range sensors have confirmed the massive energy signatures. We've also detected what appear to be smaller vessels accompanying it. At least a dozen escort ships, each one larger than our heavy cruisers. The room fell silent. If the escorts were that large, what did that say about the main vessel? "There's something else," continued reluctantly. "Our intelligence teams have been monitoring human communications. They seem remarkably calm about this whole situation." "Show us," ordered. The display changed to show transcripts of intercepted human messages. The assembled leaders read in growing confusion and terror. Earthrise project proceeding on schedule. Crew rotation for Sector 7 completed. Reminder, all families report to Bay 12 for safety briefing. Menu planning meeting moved to Thursday. Families, whispered the hegemony's military intelligence chief. They have families aboard a weapon of mass destruction. That's what it looks like, replied. Either humans are completely insane or, she trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Or this ship is so powerful they consider it safe to bring their children along to watch us die, completed Admiral grimly. The implications were staggering. What kind of species brought their families to witness genocide? What kind of confidence did they have in there that they treated this like a family vacation? Doctor pulled up technical analyses on his personal display. Our science teams have been working around the clock to understand the vessel's configuration. The energy emissions suggest fusion reactors of incredible size. The power output could fuel our entire for a century. "And the weapons?" asked Commander. "That's where it gets truly frightening. Our computers have identified at least 40 separate energy projection points along the hull. Each one appears to be larger than our main battleship cannons. But the strangest thing is their positioning." "What do you mean?" leaned forward. "They're not arranged for optimal firing patterns. It's almost like they weren't designed as weapons at all. But what else could they be? The energy output is massive, and they're clearly artificial structures." The assembly leader of the Silicon Collective, a machine intelligence older than most civilizations, spoke with electronic precision. "Analysis suggests humans operate on technological levels beyond current galactic standards. Their casual approach to this deployment indicates routine capability rather than desperate deployment of prototype systems." The words sent chills through every organic being in the room. If this was routine for the humans, what did their experimental weapons look like? "Admiral," interrupted a communications officer who had rushed into the room. "Priority message from the outer sensor grid. Report. The human vessel has begun broadcasting on standard frequencies. They're transmitting what appears to be a general message to anyone in the area." "Put it through." The room speakers crackled to life with a clear, calm human voice. "This is Captain Way of the vessel New Horizons. We are currently en route to our designated coordinates as filed with galactic navigation authorities. Our journey should not interfere with normal space traffic. If any vessels have concerns about our flight path, please contact us through standard diplomatic channels. New Horizons out." The message ended, leaving the war room in stunned silence. "They filed a flight plan?" asked the minister in disbelief. "Galactic navigation authorities," repeated Admiral slowly. "They told everyone they were coming." Lieutenant quickly accessed the navigation database. After a few moments, she looked up with an expression of pure confusion. "Admiral, there is a filed flight plan for a human vessel called New Horizons. It was submitted 4 months ago. The listed destination is the 442 system." "That's on the other side of our territory," Doctor observed. "They want to cross through our entire space." "The filed purpose for travel is listed as colonial establishment," continued reading. "Passenger manifest shows 2.3 million souls aboard." The number hit the room like a physical blow. 2.3 million humans on one ship. It was larger than most planetary populations. "This changes everything," the Silicon Collective representative stated. "If accurate, this vessel represents not a military strike but a migration event of unprecedented scale." A migration, the ambassador's leaves rustled frantically. "They're moving entire cities through space like it's nothing." Admiral felt a new kind of fear growing in her chest. If humans could casually transport millions of people across the galaxy, what did that say about their civilization? How many ships like this did they have? How many people could they move if they wanted to? "Ma'am," the communications officer spoke again, "we're receiving responses to our fleet mobilization calls. Every major power in the galaxy is sending ships. The Union is contributing 200 vessels. Even the isolationist sphere is sending observers." "How long until our forces are in position?" she asked. 18 hours for the main fleet. Advanced scouts will intercept in 12 hours. 18 hours to prepare for what might be first contact with a civilization, so advanced that they moved planets worth of people around like luggage. 18 hours to figure out how to deal with beings who considered crossing an entire galactic territory to be a routine journey. As the meeting continued with logistics and battle plans, couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The humans seemed too calm, too casual about everything. Either they were supremely confident in their ability to destroy anyone who challenged them, or there was something else going on entirely. Neither possibility made her feel any better about what was coming. The human vessel filled the of Admiral's flagship, and the sight made her question everything she thought she knew about ship design. The hull stretched beyond the edges of the display, a massive structure that seemed to go on forever. Dark metal sections were broken up by what looked like enormous transparent panels that glowed with soft light from within. "Distance to target?" she asked, her voice steady despite her racing hearts. 200 kilometers and holding, Admiral," replied her navigation officer. "They stopped moving as soon as our fleet came into sensor range." Around them, the largest military force in galactic history hung in space like a cloud of metal and death. 3,000 ships from dozens of species, all trained on a single target, yet somehow felt like they were the ones being watched. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel," announced the communications officer. "Put it through." The main screen shifted to show the image of a human male. He appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with short dark hair and calm brown eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with no visible weapons or armor. Most disturbing of all, he was smiling. "Good morning," the human said pleasantly. "I'm Captain Way of the New Horizons. I have to say, this is quite a welcome party you've arranged. Is there something I can help you with?" Straightened her command posture. She had conducted first contact with dozens of species, but none had ever seemed so relaxed when facing the largest war fleet in history. "I am Admiral of the Hegemony Defense Force. Your vessel has entered our territory without proper authorization." Captain's eyebrows rose slightly. "Without authorization? I'm sorry, but I believe you'll find our flight plan was properly filed 4 months ago with Galactic Navigation authorities. Perhaps there was some communication error. Your vessel poses a significant threat to hegemony security." "A threat?" Looked genuinely puzzled. "Captain, we're a civilian vessel carrying families to establish a new colony. I'm not sure how we could threaten anyone." The casual dismissal of their entire fleet sent murmurs through's bridge crew. Either this human was an incredible actor, or he truly believed his ship posed no threat. Both possibilities were terrifying. "Captain, our sensors indicate your vessel is over 200 kilometers in length and carries enough firepower to destroy entire fleets." Firepower. Confusion seemed to deepen. "Admiral, I think there might be some misunderstanding about what you're detecting. Would you be willing to send a small delegation aboard? I believe a face-to-face meeting might clear up these concerns." The bridge fell silent. Board the human, it seemed like suicide. But the captain's tone was so reasonable, so normal, that refusing might seem more suspicious than accepting. "What guarantees do you offer for my people's safety?" asked. "The same guarantees we extend to all visitors," replied with another smile. "Standard first contact protocols, diplomatic immunity, and the full protection of Federation law. Oh, and I can promise you an excellent tour of the ship. We're quite proud of what we've built." A tour. The human wanted to give them a tour of his planet-killing weapon. The absurdity of it made his head spin. "I'll send 3 representatives," she decided. "Standard diplomatic protection applies." "Of course, we'll have a shuttle waiting in Bay 17. And Admiral, thank you for approaching this diplomatically. It shows real wisdom." The connection ended, leaving staring at a blank screen. In 30 years of military service, she had never encountered anything like this. The human had thanked her for bringing an entire armada to his doorstep. "Admiral volunteers for the boarding party?" asked her first officer commander. "I'll go myself," she decided, "along with Doctor and Intelligence Chief Morin. If we're walking into a trap, at least we'll get some useful information before we die." 2 hours later, found herself in a small shuttle approaching what looked like the mouth of a massive cave. Bay 17 was larger than most space stations she had visited. As they flew inside, she could see other vessels docked along the walls, not fighters or escort craft, but what appeared to be cargo haulers and passenger transports. "Ma'am," whispered Doctor from beside her, "the atmospheric readings are strange, very strange." "How so?" "It's not just breathable air. There are trace elements that suggest plant life, lots of plant life." That made no sense. Why would a warship have plants? Their shuttle settled onto a landing platform marked with cheerful yellow paint. Through the viewports, they could see a small group of humans waiting to greet them. What shocked most was that they were all wearing civilian clothes. No armor, no weapons, no military formations. They looked like dock workers. The shuttle door opened, and Captain stepped forward with the same easy smile he had worn on screen. "Admiral, welcome aboard the New Horizons. I hope your flight was comfortable." "Captain," she replied formally, stepping down from the shuttle with her companions. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." "My pleasure. I have to admit, we don't get many visitors out here in deep space. The crew is quite excited about meeting new species." He gestured toward a nearby corridor. "Shall we begin the tour?" As they walked, tried to catalog everything she saw for intelligence purposes, but nothing made sense. The corridor was wide enough for vehicles to drive through, with a high ceiling that disappeared into shadows. The walls were covered with what looked like artwork, paintings and sculptures that seemed to serve no military purpose. "This is our main residential corridor," explained as they walked. "We call it Main Street, though I suppose that's a bit silly for a spaceship." "Residential?" Doctor asked. "Oh yes, we have about 40,000 families living in this section alone. The residential areas take up about 60% of the ship's total volume," pointed to a side passage. "That leads to the primary school complex. We've got nearly 15,000 children aboard, so education is a major concern." Children on a warship felt her worldview shifting like sand beneath her feet. They continued walking, and the corridor opened into something that made all 3 visitors stop dead. Ahead of them stretched what could only be described as a park. Trees reached toward an artificial sky that showed blue skies and white clouds. Paths wound between flower beds while humans of all ages walked, jogged, or simply sat on benches reading. "This is Recreation Section Alpha," said proudly. "We have 7 of these throughout the ship. People need space to relax, especially on a journey this long." "How long is your journey?" Intelligence Chief Morin asked quietly. "About 18 months total. We've been traveling for 6 months now. The psychological health of our passengers is extremely important on trips this long, so we've tried to recreate as much of Earth as possible. 18 months. They had been traveling for 6 months just to reach this point, and they still had a year to go. The scale was beyond anything the hegemony had ever attempted. "Captain," said carefully, "our sensors detected what appeared to be massive weapons systems along your hull. Could you explain those?" "Weapons?" Looked puzzled again. "I'm not sure what your sensors might have detected. We do have some large industrial systems for asteroid mining and planet preparation. Perhaps those showed up strangely on your equipment." "Industrial systems?" "Oh yes, quite extensive ones. We need to be able to set up basic infrastructure as soon as we arrive at our destination. That means mining equipment, manufacturing plants, terraforming systems, all the tools needed to build a new world." Eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "Would you like to see the fabrication bays? They're quite impressive." As they continued the tour, began to understand that she had made a terrible mistake. This wasn't a warship at all. It was something much more dangerous. It was proof that humans had the technology and confidence to simply pack up entire cities and move them across the galaxy like it was nothing. The question now was whether her fleet would understand that distinction, and whether it would make them feel safer or more terrified than before. The fabrication bay was larger than most planetary capitals. Admiral stood on an observation platform, looking down at machines the size of buildings that moved with impossible precision. Robotic arms assembled structures that would have taken her people months to build, completing them in hours. "These units can produce everything from basic housing to atmospheric processors," Captain explained with obvious pride. "When we reach our new world, we'll have a complete industrial base ready to deploy within weeks." Doctor was frantically taking readings with his scanner, his blue skin growing paler by the minute. "Admiral," he whispered urgently, "these aren't weapons. They're construction tools, but the power requirements, they're enormous." "That's why we have the fusion reactors," said, apparently overhearing. "Would you like to see those next? They're really the heart of the whole operation." Exchanged glances with her companions. They had come aboard expecting to find a planet-killing weapon. Instead, they were getting a tour of what appeared to be a mobile civilization. The implications were staggering. "Captain," she said slowly, "I need to ask you directly. What exactly is the New Horizons?" "It's a colony ship, Admiral. A generation ship, technically, though our journey is relatively short by historical standards." Looked genuinely confused by the question. "I thought that was clear from our filed documentation." "You're telling me this entire vessel is civilian?" "Of course. Well, mostly civilian. We have security personnel for dealing with emergencies, but this is primarily a transport and colonization vehicle." Paused. "Admiral, may I ask why you brought such a large fleet to meet us? Your forces are quite impressive, but they seem like overkill for a simple diplomatic contact." Intelligence Chief Morin stepped forward. "Our sensors indicated massive energy signatures and what appeared to be heavy weapons systems. We interpreted your vessel as a potential military threat." His eyes widened in understanding. "Oh, I see the confusion now. You detected our industrial systems and fusion reactors. Yes, they do put out enormous energy signatures, but they're for building cities, not destroying them." "The weapon emplacements our sensors detected?" asked. "Probably the mining arrays and terraforming projectors. They're designed to reshape planetary surfaces and extract materials from asteroids. I suppose they might look threatening to someone who didn't know what they were." Scratched his head. "I should probably update our external identification systems to make their purpose clearer." The casual way he discussed technology that could reshape planets sent chills down spine. If humans used such power for routine construction work, what did their actual weapons look like? "How many people did you say were aboard?" Doctor asked weakly. 2.3 million, give or take. We have detailed manifests if you need exact numbers." The passenger breakdown includes families, scientists, engineers, teachers, farmers, artists. Basically, everyone needed to establish a complete society. You're moving an entire planet's worth of people, Morin stated rather than asked. Well, not quite a planet, more like a large metropolitan area, though I understand it might seem like a lot to species with smaller populations. Brightened. Would you like to meet some of the colonists? I'm sure they'd be fascinated to meet aliens. We don't get many opportunities for first contact. Before anyone could answer, a young human voice called out from below them. Dad, Dad, are those the aliens? They looked down to see a small human child, perhaps 8 years old by hegemony standards, standing with an adult human who was presumably her father. The child was pointing up at them with undisguised excitement. Sarah, what did I tell you about coming to the industrial sections? The father called up. But Dad, they're purple, and look how many arms she has. The child bounced with enthusiasm. Can I ask them about their spaceship? Captain smiled apologetically. I'm sorry about that. Word travels fast in a closed community like this. Half the ship probably knows about our visitors by now. She's not afraid of us, observed with wonder. Why would she be? You're our first alien contact. This is incredibly exciting for everyone aboard. Waved down at the child. Sarah, if you wait nicely, maybe our guests will have time to answer some questions later. Really? The child's voice carried clearly across the massive space. Thank you, I have so many questions. As they continued the tour, more humans gathered along their route. Not soldiers or guards, but ordinary people. Families with children, elderly humans in hover chairs, teenagers who whispered excitedly among themselves. All of them looked curious and welcoming rather than threatening. This is our main plaza, said as they entered another vast open space. We hold community events here, concerts, festivals, that sort of thing. It's important to maintain social connections on a journey this long. The plaza was filled with humans going about their daily lives. Street vendors sold food from small carts. Children played games in open areas. Artists displayed their work along the walkways. It was exactly like any civilian population center had ever seen, except it was flying through space at impossible speeds. Captain, she said finally, I need to contact my fleet. I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding about your mission here. Of course, feel free to use our communications array. We're happy to provide any documentation you need to clear things up. Paused. Admiral, may I ask what your people thought we were doing here? Considered how to answer that question. How could she explain that her entire civilization had mobilized because they thought the humans were bringing a planet killing to destroy them? We believed your vessel might be a military threat, she said diplomatically. A military threat? Looked genuinely shocked. Admiral, we're families trying to start a new life. We filed all the proper paperwork, followed all the navigation protocols, and we're not even planning to stop in your territory. We're just passing through on our way to an uninhabited system. Yes, I'm beginning to understand that now. His expression grew serious. Admiral, I hope our presence hasn't caused any unnecessary alarm. The last thing we want is to be seen as aggressive or threatening. We're explorers and settlers, not conquerors. The irony wasn't lost on. The humans weren't trying to be threatening, but their casual display of advanced technology was more intimidating than any weapon could have been. They were moving millions of people across the galaxy like it was a routine commute. They had industrial systems that could rebuild worlds and fusion reactors that could power entire civilizations, and they acted like all of this was perfectly normal. Captain, with your permission, I'd like to bring some of my senior officers aboard for a briefing. I think it would help if they could see what we've seen. Absolutely. We'd be happy to host them. In fact, if any of your people are interested in extended visits, we have guest quarters available. Some of our passengers would love the chance for cultural exchange. Cultural exchange. With the massive fleet of warships pointed at them, the humans were offering cultural exchange. "Thank you, Captain. I'll make the arrangements." As they made their way back toward the shuttle bay, Doctor fell into step beside her. "Admiral, what are we going to tell the fleet?" "The truth," she replied. "That we've just encountered something far more significant than a weapon. We've found a civilization so advanced that they treat interstellar colonization like a routine business trip. That's almost more terrifying than if they had been coming to attack us." "Almost." Doctor looked back at the humans they were leaving behind. Children waved at them from observation windows. Adults smiled and nodded respectfully. A completely normal population going about their completely impossible lives. "No," he said finally, "it's definitely more terrifying." As their shuttle departed the New Horizons, looked back at the massive vessel. Somewhere inside, 2 million humans were living their lives, confident that their technology would safely carry them across the galaxy to build a new world. They had the industrial capacity to terraform planets and the energy generation to power civilizations, and they used it all as casually as other species used basic tools. The question now was how to explain this to her fleet, without causing a galaxy-wide panic about just how far behind everyone else really was. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of Admiral's report. Representatives from every major civilization sat in stunned silence as she finished describing what they had found aboard the human vessel. "Let me understand this correctly," said Council Leader Thane, his ancient voice carrying across the assembly hall. "The object we thought was a planet-killing weapon is actually a civilian transport carrying families to start a new colony." "That's correct, Council Leader. And these families are traveling in a vessel larger than most space stations, powered by fusion reactors that could supply energy to entire worlds, equipped with industrial systems that can rebuild planets." "Also correct. And they consider this normal." Admiral paused before answering. "More than normal, Council Leader. They consider it routine. Captain mentioned that this was one of several colony missions launched this year." The silence that followed was broken only by the nervous rustling of the delegation and the electronic humming of the Silicon Collective representatives processing this information. "Several missions like this?" asked the ambassador, her crystalline form flickering with agitation. "They do this regularly." According to Captain, yes. He spoke about colony ships the way we might discuss passenger shuttles between nearby systems. Doctor stepped forward to address the assembly. "Council members, I've analyzed the energy signatures and structural data from the New Horizons. The technological implications are staggering. Their fusion reactors alone are several generations ahead of anything we possess. Their manufacturing capabilities could revolutionize galactic industry, and their casual approach to interstellar travel suggests they've solved problems we're still struggling with." The finance minister rose from his seat, his crystal body glowing with anxiety. "What does this mean for galactic economics? If humans can move entire populations and industrial bases at will, they could establish competing colonies anywhere they choose. They could undercut our trade routes, our resource extraction operations, our entire economic structure." "That's assuming they want to compete with us," replied Admiral. "Based on my interactions with Captain, they seem more interested in finding empty space to fill than taking over occupied territory." "For now," muttered the Reptilian League's representative. "But what happens when they run out of empty space?" The question hung in the air like a toxin. Everyone understood the implications. A species that could casually transport millions of people across the galaxy wouldn't be stopped by conventional borders or defenses. Commander of the Reptilian League stood up, her scales shifting to aggressive colors. "Admiral, during your time aboard their vessel, did you see anything that resembled actual military capabilities?" "The security personnel I met were polite and professional, but their equipment was clearly advanced beyond our standards. More concerning was that everything I saw appeared to be civilian technology, if their civilian capabilities are this impressive. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the assembly could do the math. The Silicon Collective's primary representative activated its speakers. Analysis request. If observed vessel represents civilian transportation, extrapolation suggests human military capabilities operate at exponentially higher technological levels. Probability assessment. Direct military confrontation with human forces would result in total defeat for all known galactic powers combined. The electronic voice delivered this assessment with mechanical precision, making it somehow more terrifying than if it had been spoken with emotion. "We can't be certain of that," protested the hegemony's military intelligence chief. "We've seen only one ship, met only a few individuals. Perhaps the New Horizons is their most advanced vessel." Admiral shook her head. "Chief Morin, I don't think you understand. Captain wasn't trying to impress us. He wasn't showing off their most advanced technology. He was giving us a simple tour of what he considered a normal passenger vessel. Everything we saw was routine to him." "The implications extend beyond military concerns," added Doctor. "Their approach to terraforming, resource extraction, and large-scale engineering suggests they've transcended many of the limitations that constrain our civilizations. They're not just technologically advanced, they're operating on a fundamentally different scale." The ambassador's light patterns shifted to deep blue, indicating profound concern. "What do we know about human civilization as a whole? How many ships like this do they have? How many colonies are they planning?" "According to the intelligence files, humanity appeared in our galaxy only 50 years ago," Admiral replied. "In that time, they've established dozens of outposts and research stations. If the New Horizons is representative of their expansion efforts, they could have hundreds of colony ships currently in transit." "Hundreds," whispered Council Leader Thane, "each one carrying millions of people." The mathematics were overwhelming. If humans were launching multiple colony ships each year, carrying millions of passengers each, they could be spreading across the galaxy at a rate that would dwarf any previous expansion in galactic history. "There's something else," Admiral continued. "While aboard the New Horizons, I noticed several other vessels docked in their bays. Captain casually mentioned they were support ships for surveying potential colony sites and establishing supply lines. Each of those support ships was larger than our heavy cruisers." The assembly erupted in concerned murmurs and agitated communications. Support ships the size of major warships. Survey vessels that would qualify as capital ships in any other fleet. The scale was beyond anything they had imagined. "What's our response?" demanded the ambassador. "Do we try to establish diplomatic relations? Do we attempt to limit their expansion? Do we prepare for eventual conflict?" "None of those options seem adequate," replied Council Leader Thane grimly. "If their civilian capabilities are this advanced, challenging them militarily would be suicide. Diplomatically, we have nothing they appear to need. And limiting their expansion assumes we have the power to do so, which seems increasingly unlikely." The Silicon Collective representative processed for several moments before speaking again. "Recommendation: immediate reassessment of all intelligence data regarding human activities. Previous observations may require reinterpretation given new understanding of their technological baseline." "Agreed," said Admiral. "I've already ordered intelligence to review every report about human ships, stations, and activities. Many things we dismissed as unusual merchant vessels or research outposts may actually be military installations," completed the ambassador. "If their civilian ships are this powerful, their actual warships must be." She couldn't finish the thought. None of them could. "Admiral," asked Council Leader Thane, "what was Captain's response when you explained our initial concerns about his vessel?" He seemed genuinely surprised that we found them threatening. Then he offered to share their terraforming technology in the spirit of galactic cooperation. Paused. He made this offer while 3,000 warships were pointed at his vessel, as if our entire fleet was just a minor inconvenience. He offered to share their technology. Advanced terraforming systems that could transform dead worlds into garden planets in decades instead of centuries. The implications of that casual offer sent new waves of concern through the assembly. Technology that advanced, offered freely to potential enemies, suggested either supreme confidence or a complete lack of concern about galactic military capabilities. Council Leader, said the hegemony's science advisor, I recommend we establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity immediately. If they're willing to share even basic versions of their technology, it could advance our civilizations by centuries. And if they're not willing, asked Commander, then we hope they continue to see us as harmless neighbors instead of obstacles to their expansion. As the session continued, Admiral found herself thinking about the human child who had waved at them from the New Horizons. That little girl was growing up in a civilization that treated interstellar travel like a family vacation, that carried the tools to rebuild worlds in their pocket, and that saw the galaxy as a vast frontier waiting to be explored. By the time that child reached adulthood, humans might have colonies in every corner of the galaxy. They might have technologies that made current galactic powers look like primitive tribes, and they would consider all of it perfectly normal. The greatest fear wasn't that humanity was coming to conquer the galaxy. The greatest fear was that they were coming to inherit it, and there was absolutely nothing anyone could do to stop them. As the New Horizons resumed its journey toward the edge of hegemony space, carrying 2 million humans toward their new home, the galaxy's major powers began the difficult process of accepting that they were no longer the most advanced civilizations in their corner of the universe. And somewhere in human space, other colony ships were already being prepared for launch, carrying even more families toward even more distant stars, treating the impossible as routine and making the galaxy a little smaller with every journey.